Welcome to Ignite Visibility University Interview Edition, where we learn from the top marketers in the world, what drives them, their mistakes, their wins, and secrets to success. This podcast is brought to you by Ignite Visibility, one of the top digital marketing agencies in the nation.
All right, everybody, welcome to another Ignite Visibility University. Today I have Brian Dean. If you don't know about Brian Dean, he's actually been called an SEO genius by Entrepreneur.com and a brilliant entrepreneur by Inc. magazine. And Brian has this award-winning blog that I absolutely love. It's called Backlinkco, which was listed by Forbes as a top blog to follow in 2017. So this guy's a real expert, knows a ton about SEO, knows a ton about YouTube, and really just digital marketing in general. So I'm really excited to have him on. Brian, welcome to the Ignite Visibility University podcast. How you doing today, man?
I'm great, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you here. And where are you in the world right now? I remember you're traveling quite a bit lately. Where are you in the world?
I'm in Lisbon, Portugal.
Beautiful place over there, and also the where Web Summit happens. So a really kind of vibrant tech area that's mixed with old world. Old world meaning just like a place that's developed over time and kind of older Europe that's becoming modern day. Are you enjoying living there?
Yeah, it's cool for exactly those reasons you mentioned. You know, it's a beautiful city, ancient, really. I mean, the Romans there's still Roman stuff here, and it has an eye to the future with things like Web Summit and startups that are coming here, and just more and more startups are coming to Lisbon because they come to Web Summit, they fall in love with the city, and they realize they want to stick around or have an office here. So there's a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah, I found it really interesting. I was there at Web Summit, and one of the things I remember, I'd be on a run, and there would be kind of like tech buildings, and then you look over to the left and there's this beautiful landscape, and there are castles, that from so long ago. And then my favorite part is there's a surf break there called Nazarene, and Nazarene has one of the biggest waves in the world. So it's just a lot of cool stuff going on in that part of the world. So Brian, tell us a little bit about what you're up to nowadays. You know, we went through kind of, your blog a little bit, Backlinkco. I'm sure that's a big focus for you. What's your role looking like, and what are you working on?
It's 100% Backlinkco. So about 3 or 4 years ago now, I stopped consulting, stopped doing anything else that wasn't Backlinkco. So my role, you know how this is, John. As a founder, it's a lot of little things, but there's one main thing you do, and it's different for every founder. For me, it's creating content. So most of the day I spend either researching stuff for content, creating content, editing it, improving it, kind of putting pieces together for design elements and things like that. But I would say my main thing that I work on now and most days is creating content.
One of the things I love about your role in the lifestyle that you've been able to create for yourself is, you get this pride of ownership in this amazing kind of publication and course that you've created. And, you get to kind of live wherever you want. And so it seems like a good lifestyle.
Yeah, I can't complain. I like most people, I should be more grateful and say that I remind myself of that every single day. Especially because before this, I was a freelance writer, which had some of the flexibility of, being able to work from anywhere and stuff. But in general, it wasn't great. There's a lot of like client management. The pay is not great. You're kind of creating content, but it's for other people. Like you said, you don't really have that same pride of ownership because it's going to somebody else. So it's been an awesome ride. I started Backlinkco about 6 years ago, and it's just been really fun. And I really enjoy working on it.
So tell me just a little bit more about Backlinkco, because one of the things that I've noticed, and you don't have to give us all your secrets but it's really interesting the way that you've set up kind of the funnels on the website. I mean, the first time I went there, I thought, I kind of want to sign up for Brian's course and check it out and learn. And I couldn't even figure out how to set it up, right? So you've got sign up, you've got a really deliberate system for the way that you do customer acquisition and content marketing. And so tell us, like, what's your goal with the site? How have you set it up? Have you seen any successes there? And tell us a little bit about that.
So yeah, you're not the first person that has looked for that. And actually a lot of people who don't know it's Backlinkco is a online education company ask me like, how do you make money? Or they think it's like some sort of nonprofit SEO blog. I've had people say that to me because which is not their fault. There's nothing on the site about monetization. It's 100% funneled to the email list. So one thing I learned very early on with the business was that with the type of courses we put out, which are really like comprehensive, premium level courses, they're not like quick little Udemy type style. It's like everything you need to know about a topic. And the price of the course is consonant with that. People just aren't really ready to convert on a first visit. They're searching for like something about backlinks. They read a blog post. Oh, this blog post is pretty cool. They're not going to go to the sales page and convert. It's not really like I wouldn't call it an impulse buy, but it takes a little bit more like relationship nurturing, education about what it is, what it includes, things like that. So, and also it's not open all the time. We only open enrollment about twice per year. So it's not even really practical to do that. So what that has allowed us to do is funnel everything towards the newsletter and focus the site on conversions for the newsletter rather than trying to split things and have, some people try to like our Facebook page and some people try to buy the course and some people to become email subscribers and other people to read suggested stuff and see our YouTube content. It's really focused on the email list, which has helped the site convert really well.
Really interesting. And I'm seeing that more and more, this really deliberate funnel strategy. I've seen some people set it up so that they run ads. The ad will then go to a landing page where, you're forced to watch, a video that then, captures your email and then kicks you to another video. And I'm just seeing a lot of people, taking time to really map out and nurture leads until pointed conversion for longer sales cycles so that they can get the close. Because a lot of times, if I just saw one blog post from you, you're right. I wouldn't sign up for a course and other people wouldn't either. So seems like, that's a great tip for everybody listening here. So Ignite Visibility University listeners, think about that. If you've got a longer sales cycle, really warming those people up in the right way, even creating a great video or something like that, emailing them, nurturing them along the way until they're ready to close is something that's worked well for Brian and something that I've seen that's worked well for other people as well. So Brian, one of the things that I've seen you do that you just crush it at, I mean, you're amazing at content marketing in general, but I've been noticing over the last couple of years, you've been spending a lot of time on YouTube. Tell us just like a little bit about YouTube. How's that been going for you? And what's kind of your strategy there?
So it's funny you ask, because if you asked me when I first started YouTube how it's going, I would have said terrible, because It was one of those things I really struggled with YouTube when I first started. I had read all these stats, YouTube is the second most popular website in the world. People spend hours on it. It's growing, all this stuff. So I thought it was just one of those things where you put up videos and they would go viral and people would watch them and you'd be the next like famous internet marketing guru celebrity. Didn't really work out that way. I put out some videos and very few people watched them. I basically emailed the videos to my email subscribers and like exactly how many people clicked on that email or how many views the video had. It was like a one-to-one relationship. No one watched it outside of that. So I eventually, but I didn't want to really give up on YouTube because I did see the potential and those stats stuck with me. I couldn't really turn away from the potential that was there. So I stuck with it. And over time, I figured some things out. And about 1.5 years to 2 years ago, I basically developed like an internal system for finding keywords and topics, creating videos, promoting them and optimizing them that has worked really well. And the most important thing that has been great in terms of YouTube is not so much like traffic and views and all that stuff. That stuff's nice. In a way, it's a vanity metric. But what's great is that when we survey customers, a lot of them cite the YouTube channel as a way they found Backlinkco and a reason they ended up buying the course. Just because video is this really powerful medium, kind of like podcasting. It's something so personal about it, something so vivid compared to a text-based blog post that just, you can't replicate it. So when people see a video from me on the channel, they're much more likely to buy. And every time we send out the customer surveys, that comes up again and again. Why'd you decide to buy? Video. How'd you find us? YouTube. So it doesn't show up in the analytics as much, but it shows up more in the bottom line.
Yeah, 100%. We're seeing the same thing. A lot of people kind of watching some of the videos that I've been putting out. Just to be 100% transparent, I've tried it a couple different ways. So, at one point, I was going very keyword targeted with YouTube videos. And then after talking to a lot of other people, I've had other people kind of say, well, YouTube is really more of a suggestion engine. So I find it interesting that there's kind of two different ways you can go about it. And of course, it's best if you marry the two, but I see some people go kind of more after the clickbaity type of strategy where they're working more of the suggestion engine side. I see other people go more deliberate on the keyword side. And tell us a little bit more about like, how are you approaching that? Like optimization wise, any tips you can give for our listeners?
I'm definitely promoting it from the suggestion side. So that's a lesson I learned early on, that one of the mistakes I made was really focusing on YouTube search because, again, these stats, it's such a huge search engine. It's the second biggest search engine. Millions of people search, which is true. But whoever told you that YouTube is a suggestion engine hit the nail on the head, because that's exactly what it is. Yes, people do search for stuff in YouTube and find videos that way, but about 60 to 70%, depending on the topic and the channel, of videos are from suggestions, either on the YouTube homepage, which is now 100% personalized, but most of them come from the suggested video sidebar or underneath in mobile. So when you're watching a video, those videos on the outside. And the real key to getting a lot of views on YouTube is to keyword optimize your stuff, but you don't want to keyword optimize it for ranking in search. You want to keyword optimize it to rank in suggested video. So what that means is you actually want to optimize it around keywords that are really popular and competitive, not around low competition keywords, because even if you rank number one YouTube, that's nice, but it's a lot more powerful to show up next to a video that's already getting a ton of views, because some of those people will click on your video and watch it.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's really interesting. Gosh, I remember when I first got started in YouTube, I was just absolutely terrible, and I'm still terrible, but I'm less terrible than I was. And it takes time. You got to put in the effort. You got to show up. You got to get comfortable on video. What type of tips would you give for somebody who's just looking to start a channel, like just basic stuff? Is there anything else that our listeners would be interested in?
Yeah, two things come to mind. The first would be to think about, before you start, before you shoot anything, think about your channel's positioning and how it's going to stand out. So even though YouTube is really popular, it's also really competitive. So one way to stand out is to position yourself very early on as a little bit different. So for example, let's say you wanted to create a site about fitness. It's an insanely competitive space in general, but especially on YouTube. But you could be like the biceps guy, or the girl who shows you how to get jacked arms, whatever. The point is that you have a niche that you can position yourself as that expert, and then just create videos on that topic when you're first starting out, which will help you stand out. Then as your channel gets traction, you can broaden out and cover other topics like, cardio and core stuff or whatever. But at first, by having that niche, it'll really help you stand out. The other thing I would recommend is just get started with it. I find a lot of people with YouTube, you called it, showing up. I think that's a great way to put it. Video is intimidating. I'm like you, John, I was not a natural on camera by any stretch of the imagination. I froze the first time the camera turned on. I saw that little red light. I don't know what it is about that little red light, but it freaked me out. And I started stuttering and stammering. So I would recommend just like getting in front of the camera, recording videos, and just knowing it's not live, unless you're doing Facebook, unless you're doing live. It's not live. You can always edit it or delete it or whatever. It's just something about getting in front of the camera. And today, because I've spent hours in front of cameras for YouTube videos and course videos, it's like so normal. I stand in front of the camera and I can actually think of other stuff while I'm talking to the camera because it's just so automatic at this point. But it was totally not the case at first, and it took years to get there.
That's awesome. That's really, really interesting. One other quick tip that I was just thinking of while you're giving us all that great information. Another thing that I've seen that's been good is creating playlists around a topic. So almost even thinking about it like from a website architecture perspective for SEO. But one of the things I've done is created playlists that have many, many videos on a topic. What'll happen is somebody will just watch all of those videos and then they'll become a prospect, and they feel like they already know our whole system. They're confident in our abilities and stuff like that. So that can be a great thing too, as well as playlist optimization. So Brian, you have some great knowledge in YouTube. Thanks so much for sharing that. One of the things, and perhaps the thing that you're known the best for, is attacking probably the hardest problem, I believe, in SEO, and that is backlinking. So backlinking is tricky, and it's something you've worked on a lot. It's something I've worked on a lot for our own agency. And I've always been, impressed by the way that you've approached it. So one of the things I want to ask you today is, I've seen you've got some new things that you're trying, maybe not new, but things that you're currently doing. One of them was industry studies. Are you finding that industry studies are a great way to build backlinks right now? Is that one of your core strategies? Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah. So about 3 years ago now, I was publishing the normal blog content, list posts and case studies and guides and stuff like that. And it was working. That's kind of the foundation of any blog, is that type of stuff. But I noticed that, for example, with a guide, it didn't get that many links. Like, an ultimate guide to, link building or on-page SEO, whatever, it just doesn't have that hook that makes someone want to link to it. The only time someone would link to it is if they're writing like, here are the, great SEO resources about on-page SEO, and they would include mine, which is great, but it doesn't really scale and you're not going to get a ton of links that way. So about 3 years ago, I decided to try an industry study for the first time. And it was like, I made a million mistakes. This was actually like a lot of sleepless nights over this study. I decided to do the biggest SEO ranking factor study ever. So we analyzed 1 million Google search results, which now people have done like hundreds of millions or whatever. But at the time, the biggest one was Moz, and they looked at like 4,000 keywords. We looked at 1 million. And I had no experience doing this sort of thing. So I hired a project manager who used to work at SEMrush. We hired a developer to scrape it. And anyway, at the end of the day, it was a lot of work and a lot of money. And it was a huge success. That posted like ridiculously well. I haven't looked at the numbers lately, but it was a huge spike in traffic that took weeks to die down because it got so many dark social posts, people sharing it with their teams and stuff. And then it still gets linked to all the time, even though the information is kind of outdated. I would say it probably has like 1,000 linking root domains, maybe more.
Wow.
Which from one post is like pretty insane. It was a lot of work, but it showed me that like, wow, this kind of thing can really work. So since then, I put out a couple more. We had one about YouTube, which is like a YouTube ranking factor is equivalent. That was a lot easier. We did a voice search one, which was a lot easier. That was like 10,000. We analyzed 10,000 voice search results. The only hard part of that one was getting someone to ask Google Home 10,000 different questions and recording all the responses. So if you can find someone that's like hardcore enough to do that, you can do one with 20 or 50,000 or whatever. And we've done a couple more lately where we partner with people who had data, and they basically provided us with the data and we helped analyze it and stuff, which is also a lot easier. So the point of all this is to say, yes, it works well, but I'd recommend, especially if you're starting out, think of like, how could I do this where it's not super hard? So are there public databases that you can use? Are there APIs you can use? Is there a developer you can work with where he or she can help you manage all this so you don't have to do all of it yourself? Or could you do a survey, which is a lot easier? You can hire you can use SurveyMonkey and pay, or Google surveys, to get panelists, and you can ask them different questions and then publish the results of the survey. So data is great. My only recommendation would be like, don't do what I did when I first started, which is try to do something too ambitious and too complicated. Even though it ultimately worked out, I'd start small and then grow from there.
That's really good advice. Yeah, absolutely. And we, so we do industry surveys and studies for clients, and it goes really well. Usually we'll get 50 to 200 links, for clients and media placements, and sometimes we can embargo them. And I find that it can be, you want to make sure that it's niche enough and novel enough so that people actually want to cover it. If you go too broad, it doesn't seem like people are that interested in it. I think that's one thing just to kind of keep an eye out for. But, the studies that you've done that I absolutely love is you'll get real data, massive amounts of data. And that in itself makes it so it's really buzzworthy. So awesome stuff there. And then I have another question for you. So one of the things that you're kind of known for, at least one of your strategies, one of your methodologies, is something called the Skyscraper method. And it's something that's referenced quite a bit. So do you ever use that in tandem with industry studies? And maybe you could tell our listeners just a little bit about Skyscraper and why it might be helpful for them.
Yeah, sure. So the Skyscraper technique is basically a strategy where you create content that's specifically designed to get linked to. And because I struggle with that process, I had trouble coming up with what people would link to. Now I have a lot more experience, but when I first started, I didn't really know when I created something if someone would link to it or not. I realized that all you really needed to do was find content that people already linked to in your industry and then create something better or a bigger skyscraper. So that has worked really well. Also, the technique, like you said, John, people have referenced it, which is great. And I have applied this to industry studies because if you look at them, the ones that we put out, none of them are especially like novel. Like they're not, no one's done this before. It's more of a bigger, better approach and in terms of sample size, but also in terms of digging a little deeper. So to give you an idea, with the YouTube ranking factor study we did, we basically scraped 1 million YouTube search results and looked at all the factors like how long the video is, whether it's HD, stuff like that. And part of it was bigger than others were out there, but we also looked at factors that no one had looked at before, like the HD thing, how many comments it had. Most people looked at like a superficial level. Okay, this has, this many views or something like that. We looked at different factors that were a little bit harder to investigate, but it worked. So yeah, I definitely apply that. There's a place for just coming up with something completely original, but another angle that you can use for this is to look at what's already done well in your industry and then think of putting a study in there. So if a topic is hot, coming in with an industry study can blow up. Like when we did the voice search study, that was about 1.5 years ago. It was right when there was all this awareness in marketing about voice search, and it did really well. Even though the study wasn't especially like amazing or anything, just the timing was right. If we did it now, or if we did it 6 months earlier, it wouldn't have done as well. So part of it is keeping your ear to the ground and being like, okay, what's big right now? And where are people talking about stuff where there's no data? Like the keto diet would be a good example now that's blowing up. Maybe you could do like a survey about how many people are doing it, if they're struggling with it. You can't obviously do like a study like a nutrition study, but you can ask people what they're eating and things like that to add some data and context to this hot topic, and you can get right in this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of funny you say that because I'm speaking at SMX on voice search, SMX Advanced on voice search, and I was thinking about also doing an industry study about it. I've got this amazing deck, but I don't want to do the industry study on it because I feel like so many people have done them. You've done one, right? You attacked that a while ago. I may still, we'll see.
You still should, man, because it changes so fast too. That's the thing. Mine is already kind of dated.
Yeah.
So you could just swoop in with a bet, like just the fact that it's 2019.
Yeah, 2019 voice search industry study. Maybe I'll do that. Keep an eye out for that, listeners. We'll probably have one of those coming along the way too. So Brian, awesome information, super knowledgeable. I really appreciate all that stuff. One of the things I wanted to ask you as we're kind of wrapping up here is there's so much going on in marketing right now. And I've interviewed a lot of people about this recently. I've got ideas on it. I just feel like there's so many different directions to go, so many new things that are popping up. Is there anything that you're really excited about that you think, is going to be big moving forward, or that's just kind of working for you now, that's novel? Talk to me about that a little bit.
So the number one thing I would recommend is going a little bit back to the future, and focusing on email. So one of the things that I always come back to, like when I don't know what to do, is build my email list. I remember, I don't know, this was when I was first getting started with like this was like when I launched my first website. I remember I followed some guru guy. I don't even remember who it was. I don't think he's around anymore. And he had this thing where at the end of the day, he would judge his workday based on, did I build my email list today and did I serve my email list today?
Interesting.
Like he was so laser focused on email. And I think because he was so psychotic about it, it resonated with me, because especially because I was just starting out, I didn't know. I was like, okay, email must be important. And it ended up being this like super competitive advantage for me, because everyone's on to the next thing, whether it's voice search or Snapchat or whatever, live video, social video, you know how it is, John. There's always some new thing on the horizon that's blowing up. And at the end of the day, if you ask any online business, like where most of their customers come from in terms of conversions, it's always email. And so for me, that's always been my focus. And I try not to get into like the next big thing as much, so I can really focus on email, as kind of old school as that sounds.
No, I love that. We did this industry study on digital marketing not too long ago. We saw that businesses under 2 million are really investing the most in social media. Then as they get bigger, they invest a little bit more into SEO. Then they start getting into SEO, paid media, and social. After they get over 10 million, it all starts evening out. And then as they get larger and larger and larger, they start investing more and more in email. And then an email actually ends up becoming somewhat dominant. And I believe that that's kind of just part of like the natural progression of growing a list, and then kind of, having customers and to be able to nurture that and work that list. And so Ignite Visibility listeners, that's a really good tip. Don't ever forget about email. I feel like people think email is so old school. I actually went to dinner with this really, really smart CEO the other day. And he's like, John, I haven't sent an email blast out in like 2 years. I sent one out last week, and customers went through the roof, right? And it, just because it's not sexy, just because it's not Snapchat, or it's not like a Google Action, or it's not a chat bot through Facebook Messenger that's got augmented. I mean, make money, people. Online, you got to feed your family. You got to pay for your bills. Forget about all that shiny object syndrome.
Yeah,
Brian, I'm right with you on that one.
Oh man,
very well
amen,
taken.
amen, my friend. I couldn't have said it better myself.
So last question I have for you before I want to kind of know what's going on with you moving forward, but I have to ask you, like on the SEO side, like, is there any way that SEO is shifting for you right now, or any tips or anything? Or are you just staying kind of tried and true, kind of like you were on the email side, just focusing on content and what's working?
No, with SEO, I do like to dabble into the next big thing, but mostly because I'm kind of like you, I'm an SEO nerd. So I love dabbling into the new stuff, as long as I have my business in order. You know what I mean? Like, as long as I feel like I'm doing the basics, then move on to the next thing and try some new stuff out. Plus, it's kind of my job. Like if there's this new thing and it blows up with chatbots and I'm not on top of it, it's fine. But if there's new thing with SEO and I'm like, wait, what is that? It's a derelict of duty. Like I need to be on top of this stuff. So I do keep an eye on new stuff, and I'm always testing and experimenting. And one thing that we've been trying lately that's been working really well is going back to old content and improving it and updating it. And the tactic's not that new, but I feel like it's getting like more interest now. And people are doing it because I think just so many sites just have tons of content sitting around, and they're producing new stuff. Meanwhile, they have this blog post from 5 years ago that was cool at the time, but it's 5 years ago, 5 years later, it's not as good anymore. And you can go back and update it, and literally like that, double the traffic to the page, as opposed to grinding out blog posts and building links and things like that. It's like it's like a shortcut if you already have a lot of content on your blog.
Absolutely. There's so many old blog posts out there. Great tip, everybody. We've got two systems for that. One's our keyword multiplier system, and another one's called our money climber system. there's a bunch of different ways to go about doing it. And let's get into that. Maybe Brian and I will do a webinar someday on how to update your content and get the biggest bang for your buck out of it. It's probably another episode, but Brian's traffic is through the roof, and that's a great tip for everybody. Brian, last question I have for you today. What's exciting for you coming up? Anything big, or are you just kind of laying low lately, working on the blog? Anything you wanted to shout out just so people can follow you and see the next thing that's coming down the pipe?
Yeah, I have some cool content projects that I'm working on that are coming out. 2 industry studies in the pipeline that are a little bit different than the We Analyzed X, Here's We Learned About Y approach, which there's nothing wrong with those, but I want trying some more like tech stuff, looking at some click-through rate data that we're able to get access to. So yeah, some cool stuff. The best way to keep tabs on all the stuff we're putting out is to go to backlinkco.com and hop on the newsletter. That way you don't miss out on any of this stuff.
You heard it from Brian, everybody. Go sign up for the newsletter. You'll get a bunch of great information for free and probably eventually sign up and buy his course, and it's well worth it. Brian, thanks so much for being on today. Awesome interview, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, John.